Hello. Let me... All right. Don't think anyone is online yet, but that's okay. We'll go from here. All right, so somebody's already watching. Hey everyone, so I turned on the stream without like any plan, but actually I do have a plan. We just like a couple of minutes ago, we with amazing folks from Cyprus, we have finished a stream, or rather a webinar on like best practices. And just give me a couple of seconds so I can announce everything. And I actually copied some of the questions that were asked, whether on Slido or on Zoom, and I would like to like go just maybe through a couple of them and answer them. Take a look into like what's been asked, and if I can answer, I'll try to answer, and if I can't, then I'll just skip the question. But yeah, if you feel like you have an additional question to what has been said, feel free to ask. So yeah, here's like a file of me, like the copy of the file. So let me just give me a couple of seconds. How about we change the angle? I'm going to do it like this. Is that okay? Hopefully it is. And I'm just going to put my questions so I can see them. And yeah. All right, so let me announce that on my Discord as well. Answering some of the questions from today's webinar here. All right, so we already got 5 people watching. That's amazing. Cool. Let me just fiddle around and we'll start in like a couple of seconds. Hey, hello from Brazil. Hello from everywhere. Yeah, you can use the YouTube chat, and if you have like any other question, I can answer that. All right, so I have like a main screen right here. What can we see on the main screen? Is that this one? Yeah, it's this one. So not sure if I should show anything. You know what? I'm going to show something. I'm going to show you this because this is exciting. This is the thing I am excited about. And that is the Cypress Core workshop that I will be doing beginning, or rather ending of May. Yeah, here it is. So nice, you can see that. It's on my page, philipbreeze.com, so you can check it out if you'd like to. But let's go with the questions. Let's see if we can answer any of those. And you know what? I'm actually going to put it like this, and right over here I'm just going to snap these questions so you can see which one I'm answering. I don't think I will be answering all of them, but just so you see everything. The problem I have with this, I'm kind of looking that way and the camera is that way. I feel like that is kind of unnatural way of me interacting with you, but hopefully that one will do. So yeah, anyone, probably like people that are online now have seen the webinar. It was a great one. We were with Ramona and with Toby, and we were talking about best practices and our experiences. And we shared a lot of experiences. We shared some of best practices, and there were like a lot of questions because there were like 1,000 people on that webinar, which is just a huge crowd, and you obviously just cannot answer all of those questions. Obviously, different people have different needs, different testing problems. So I guess there were so many unanswered questions that, I mean, even on this stream, we're probably just not going to go through all of them. But yeah, let me switch to presentation mode. Yeah, that's the good one. All right. So we got, what's the plan to get feasibility to automate tests, a new test, new tab, and page? How to handle that? Yeah. So that's a question from Zoom, and yeah, this is a good question, and I actually dealt with this on my blog because not having tabs in Cypress, it feels like such a huge missing feature. Like, how can you not have tabs? Obviously, all of the browsers we have today can deal with multiple tabs, right? It's not Internet Explorer 7 anymore, or whichever version that was. So it seems like tabs, not supporting tabs, is like a big oversight. And but the thing is, it actually might not be. So yeah, imagine you have a eShop, right? So you have an eShop application where obviously you can just open multiple tabs and put things in your basket, and if you go to the checkout, you can like definitely see all of your items there, right? So you want to make sure that this functionality actually works, right? The thing is though, if you are opening an application, what your browser does, like you open a new tab, right? Or open a new browser window and you type in your URL. I can actually demonstrate that. What happens, let me open the network panel and just type like google.com. Right? I open google.com, I probably made this way too big, and what happens is that there is a GET request. So it's sort of like a Postman, or if you're testing API, it's an HTTP request to a certain like URL. So it's a GET request. You can see it over here, right? And Google has some 301 going on, not sure why, but yeah, what you will do is do an HTTP request, and as a response, you will get an HTML document. So if I click on it, look at the preview, you can see like this is the HTML document. Can I see like the structure? Yeah, I can see, and you can see like there's obviously tons of JavaScript over here. So what happens, you will get, as a response, you will get an HTML document which has these different JavaScript files which are either like linked to a different location or are right inside the HTML file. What happens when the browser opens this, it proceeds to like open every other document, every image, every JavaScript, everything in what's referenced inside this HTML document, and that like triggers another set of different requests, like right. So get me the script, get me the font, get me the image, etc., etc. So it's like you have a starting point, and then you like collect everything. And then what also happens is these JavaScript files are just going to interact, right? They're going to download something. They're going to do some requests to the server, etc. And they're going to store some cookies in your browser. So whenever you open an application, this all is going to happen. So if you're using multiple tabs, in every of those tabs, this will happen. Like you always will have that one starting point. And the application can be coded in a way that it can look into the data of your browser. So for example, local storage, cookies, and stuff like that. It can create a WebSocket connection. So what really happens when you have multiple tabs and you have like an eShop and you have one eShop opened with multiple tabs, it's really separate connections to the same web page. So not having multiple tab support is kind of, I dare to say, it's a non-issue, because even with like a real browser, you're not going to, the one tab is not going to know about another tab. Like two tabs don't communicate between themselves in a browser. However, if you have an eShop and you have like a basket or shopping cart or something like that, when you save that information, it is going to be stored somewhere. So it can be stored in the browser using a cookie, or it can be stored on a server. And the way you get that information will be determined by the application you are testing. So if you want to test a scenario where a user would use multiple tabs to do something, you either need to handle the API side of things, if this information that multiple browsers are using is stored on server, or you may use cookies if the information that multiple tabs are using is stored in cookies. Now, you might say, all right, what about a chat application, right? We can have a chat application. Those are obviously like two tabs. I can test it, right? Manually, I can open one tab, open another tab, and do a chat interaction between those two. Again, this would be something, there must be something that is connecting these two tabs either through server or some kind of local storage. In a chat application, that would not be a local storage, obviously. It would be some sort of server connection. And that one is usually done via WebSocket. So like you have this, you would call it maybe like uninterrupted request. So you make a connection and you don't hang it up. That would be a WebSocket application. And that might be trickier to solve. However, our friend Gleb Bahmutov has actually written about this, and I think he wrote a blog about chat application. Yeah, here it is. So test a Socket.io chat application using Cypress, right? So obviously we need to have like two connections and test that. So here's his solution. So that might be a good one to check out. Let me actually, you know what? I have a Discord server on my philippriest.com. You can see it. Oh, let me just drop it in the chat, in the YouTube chat. That thing I will be. I think it might be easiest. And also one more thing Gleb has done. He would have a blog about like running two Cypress instances. Let me just Google two. Yeah, two test runners at the same time. So if you're like absolutely need to open two tabs, that might be a solution for you. All right, let me drop the link in the chat as well. And my gosh, that was quite a long answer for for the first question. So I'm not sure if we're going to go like through all of those. Never mind. Let me just write a white check mark here. How do I write a white check mark? The check mark. Check mark. Yeah, this is the one. Here it is. All right, we got some questions in the chat, so I'm going to prefer those. Oh, would I share my Discord as well? Yeah, I have it. I have it right here, right in the. Here's the link for that. Not sure if you meant that. Or should I like start a call, so you can call. I never tried that. Should we do that? I guess I need to do like Oh, I would need to do like an audio setup in my OBS, right? I need to test that first, but I want to do that. Like I want to have like a live interactions with you guys. Kamil is asking, so hello, if I'm not mistaken, official documentation is written for JavaScript. Is there any way to see tutorials for TypeScript? I'm beginner, so sorry if I repeat already answered question. No, that's no problem. Like you can answer and you can ask any questions you want. That's totally fine. Yeah, most of the examples are written in JavaScript. So TypeScript is a superset or like an addition to JavaScript. So basically any JavaScript, if you have written your tests in JavaScript and you set up TypeScript for your project, by the way, great docs here, so TypeScript. If you set up your project with TypeScript, which is basically just npm install TypeScript and then create this ts config file, and you're ready to go. Like that's it. Then go like take all of your files and just change JS to TS. Your tests will still run like with no problem. You can absolutely do that. You have no problem. The other way around, that might be more problematic. So, and that's kind of what I did when I started with TypeScript. All right, let's rewrite everything to TypeScript. So, just going to select all the files and change that .js to .ts. Yeah, you can start like that. I wrote the blog about how to start with TypeScript. TypeScript, starting with TypeScript in Cypress. Autocomplete, improving Cypress, logs, like those are my couple of TypeScript centered blogs. And besides this core workshop, I am planning to do like different sort of modules. Which would be like one-off workshop, like 3 hours of workshops just on a certain topic. And I want to do one for TypeScript only. So that might help. But you were asking about like tutorials for TypeScript. So yeah, these 3 blocks are my tutorials. I think I did a stream on TypeScript as well, but it's sort of like a same thing as the blog, just in like a video form with some maybe extra babbling. And yeah, if you want to take a look at TypeScript, I mean, I do have a project, right? So in my workshops, I am using this application that I coded for myself, Trello app, View It TS. It's a super messy code, so don't judge me on that. But inside the Cypress folder, I have like all of the files in TypeScript, and I think I am using some types. Or maybe not. I wanted to give you like a repo example of how TypeScript is used, but I guess like this code is not really nothing too TypeScripty going on here. Maybe in the plugins file. All right, so there is something, but not much. Yeah, I do have like types index ts, some sort of TypeScript thing going on over here, right? So I do declare something, but I mean it's not too much. So I guess like that's, and it's a popular demand, so I'm probably going to do something with that. But yeah, if you want to play around with TypeScript, maybe check that out. You also had like another question, like I understand that the use of page object, we can use page object model, but is it really best practice? I understand that it depends on many things, but yes or no. If you were like gun to my head and answer yes or no, I'd probably say no. Like I personally, I tried different approaches, and currently I'm doing multiple of those. So I do have some page objects, but I'm not like doing a page object model pattern for the whole project. Just have a couple of page objects which I was trying to work with. It is kind of nice to have the abstraction on one place, but at the same time, I'm not really. If I create a page object which will do like a series of actions, right? And if I'm using that series of actions like 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times, I'm not entirely sure that I'm being effective with my tests. Why am I doing the same interaction on like 10 different tests? I'm probably like over testing some of the plays too much, right? And if I'm not using something 10 times, is it worth like having an abstraction? I'm not sure about that, right? So that's why I'm kind of hesitant with the whole page object thing, especially if the page object is used for doing something through UI. My kind of principle is to go with the like we are doing like UI testing with Cypress, right? The end-to-end testing, but while we are doing that, or while I am doing end-to-end test or UI test, I want to avoid UI as much as I can, right? So I have like a setup phase of my test, or I think there's like a act, assert, what was the first one? Align, adjust, something like prepare. I'm totally like talking crazy right now, but there's like a pattern you can use. I forgot what was the first one, but sort of like you have a preparation phase, you have a like action phase, and then you have an assertion phase, and that preparation phase would probably be better if it wouldn't be in the UI. Right? And if you are using page objects to sort of like navigate through application and to click through a couple of things, I think that's not the best way. Like you can do it more effectively. So yeah, my answer on page objects would be no, but yeah, do some kind of abstraction. Arrange. Thank you, Dave. All right. We got another question. Is there a way to update the default download folder path per test? An example would be tests running in parallel and downloading a document with the same name. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can. I think let's test that out. Let's open VS Code. Do I have a VS Code somewhere? Oh, right here. Okay. And let's do. Oh, not this. How do I just search Explorer? Focus on folders. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Presentation mode. All right. So this is actually the repository of my workshop. So I do have my application here. So let's do npm start to start the application, And I'll do npx Cypress open to open my Cypress. Let's do it like this. Get some evil code going on. All right, so we got Cypress over here, and I'm going to create a new file and just going to call it test.js. All right, so I got test.js. Let me create a test. Just going to CY visit. Oh, it might be a problem for the download. Let's visit my homepage. Let's visit the workshop page. So that would be Cypress core workshop, because I do have a download thing over there. So where is my test? Let me find my test. Testicle test. All right. Oops, what's going on? All right, let me make this bigger. I do have Cypress core workshop, and there is a link here, like download the calendar file. So let's test that. Inspect. I probably need to. Now it's going to be funny, because I needed to make this page quick, so I didn't add any data CY attributes. So how about I'm just going to do contains CY contains, and then I'm going to paste the text, and then I'm going to click on that link, and that should that should trigger the download. Bam, I downloaded the thing, and it's in downloads folder. Right. So what we can do is define the download folder in Cypress JSON, right? Download folder. So we can change that, and the attribute for that is downloads folder. But also, oops, I didn't want to save this. Also, what we can do is to sort of, when I have this it block over here, so the first argument is function, the second one is callback, but I can paste an object here in the middle, and this one will be a configuration object. So I can change the configuration of just this test. So it would be like Cypress JSON, but just for this file. And not all of the things can be changed. So I guess so let's test that. That's what I wanted to open VS Code. Cypress downloads 2. So what happens if I save this test, I run it, and what happens? Will we have a downloads 2 folder? No! Cypress cannot mutate option downloads folder because it is a read-only property. Alright, so the answer to your question is no. You cannot change it. I mean, but this would be a good feature request. I mean, it could make sense. You want to have different download folders for, and change that during the test. I wonder, why cannot you change that? That seems like a pretty much a missing feature. Yeah, okay. So yeah, let's jump back into the questions. Oh, we have some in chat, so how about we answer those first? Document, is there a way to create folders dynamically during the run and download over there? All right, we answered that. I think the idea of page object is that most people are curious about is more a JSON object that would simply store a list of locators. Oh, like list of locators. So that's a good one. So I don't use list of locators. I mean, Actually, I started playing with that. It was during this, like auto-completing selectors in Cypress with TypeScript. So what you can do with TypeScript is pretty cool. Like you can, if you're writing your code, you can sort of get like auto suggestions. And one day I had an idea. All right, so it would be cool if I can auto suggest the selectors, right? And I put a lot of data CY selectors. So I created this custom command called data CY. And with TypeScript, I decided, all right, how about the input argument? So if I use cy get data cy and try to write a selector, how about it only takes the selectors from a list, and how it would like how about it would autocomplete for me? So if I have selectors, I have 3 selectors: board, list, card. If I use get data cy, it will suggest me either board, list, or card. And if I write something else, it's going to just like throw an error at me. So I did play with the idea of having a separate file where all of my selectors would be. And I'm still not haven't really decided whether that is a good practice or not. Because I mean, what I have seen being done with like a separate file, a separate page object with all of the selectors, was that people would throw all kinds of crap in there, and like all kinds of div asterisk something, like very complicated selectors. So they would have like all of the unreadable selectors in one file and just give that a proper name. I'm not really a fan of that approach. For one thing, it sort of creates like this global repository of all of the selectors. So the naming is a problem. So you need to like have a unique name for everything that's in your application. I mean, you could separate it in multiple files, and things can get complicated, but mostly what I see is people trying to create a single page object where all of the selectors are going to live, and every selector is going to have like a unique name. And I don't think like having a unique name for everything on the application will give you like more readability. I think it's going to make the readability harder, because you're not going to, for example, you have an email application, you're not going to name it a send button, but you're going to name it mobile form lower footer send button 2 or something like that. I'm talking crazy right now, but I hope you get my point. But yeah, I mean, if it works, then more power to you. I'm like that's my experience, right? You probably have a different experience, and I would probably say something else if I had some different experience. So yeah, or we can just disagree. That's okay. All right. I use apostrophes for values. Is it better to use over quotations or marks? Those are not apostrophes. Those are just like single quote marks. And I don't know, like at one point I decided to use those instead of double quotes, and I stuck into that. So how do you approach organizing your tests into folders? Does each spec file equal each page? No, what I like to do with tests is to go for like a user story and then try to organize those user story in like a big chunk, right? So when we had Slido over here, I would have a couple of user stories for Q&A and a couple of user stories for polls. So user sends a question, user will upvote a question. Those would be like different user stories, and those would be different tests. And all of the things that would consider questions those would be in the questions folder, and all of those that would be related to polls, those would be in a polls folder. And yeah, but I don't really have like a good rule for that. So I think, yeah, so I think that's about that for that question. And Space Cadet is asking if and having a list of locators does help with maintainability. I am not sure. Like before I had those list of selectors, whenever my test would fail on a selector, because that happens, I would go to VS Code, I would just type Command Shift F, search for that selectors, like bad selector, and then I would go replace it with a good selector. And that would be like it for a bad selector. So not much else for that. Like so now, since I have that list, I haven't really had the need for changing the selectors, or I didn't really have that problem. So I guess it helps a little. But at the same time, I don't have those selectors everywhere yet. So I still do have some maintenance of selectors. All right, let me zoom into this. I do have a questions, but these are from like the Zoom, and maybe scroll down to the ones that are over here. So line 156. So we did answer that. On the webinar, but I guess there are a couple of questions that have not yet been answered. What programming language is best for Cypress tests? That is like an absolute thing. Like, what is the best one? The best one is TypeScript, and I'm totally right about that. Everyone who opposes me is wrong. Not at all. I mean, TypeScript is definitely like a great addition, and Ramona pointed out that it can be quite annoying. And my God, yeah, it can be annoying. Like writing with TypeScript, you have an error, you don't know why. You spend 2 hours on that, then you finally solve it, and then it breaks something else, and you're just crying. And yeah, it can be painful, like especially at the beginning when you're learning that and you don't understand why there are these different errors, etc. But in the end, I think I realized that having those, if you have your application, if you have your tests inside your application repo, which by the way I think you should, you get that like additional layer of testing for your tests, right? So if there's a wrong type, right? I showed it in this test. So yeah, I have created a custom command, custom function, right? The input for this get data CY can only be something that is in the selectors. If it's something else, there's going to be an error somewhere. And you can catch that error before you run your tests. If you have, if you're using TypeScript, if you have these types defined all over your application and you use them in your tests, and your application changes some of the types, it will make your tests fail before you even run them. So there's like a command for checking those TypeScript, for checking TypeScript, right? I think I even have it here. Yeah, like TSC, like that would be the TypeScript command. And it's just going to like check all of the TypeScript files, and if you have an error, it's going to complain about that. And you can run this before you even commit your code. So you can find the errors in your application before you run them. So that's like, I think that's a huge advantage of Cypress. And it also kind of makes it fun to use. Yeah, hopefully I answered that question. So are there any ways of enhancing Selector Playground? Right now I see two hard-coded commands, CYGet and CYContains. I mean, that's kind of what Selector Playground only can do, right? Because these are selecting commands, CYGet, CYContains. I don't think that the Selector Playground will... Oh, maybe it could like implement different commands like find or EQ or first, last, parent, maybe? I don't know. It could, but yeah, I think that's a question like more for the Cypress team if they plan on anything. But I didn't answer that question in Zoom because I think it was being asked also on Zoom. You have this Cypress Selector Playground API. So these kind of commands you would put in your index.js file inside the support folder. And these are basically like you can define certain options for your test and for how the selector playground will behave. So you can have a selector priority and you can change that. So this is like the default. So if you have data CY selector and you have a data test selector, the selector playground is going to prioritize data CY, right? So you can customize this. And then there's the on element. And I played with that a little. Oh, what was it? So the custom function for determining the selector for an element. Oh yeah, so you can like define if you have like a custom attribute, it's going to return that. And you can sort of play around with that and like do your custom logic for something. But yeah, it wouldn't help with the problem of like only having like CYGet or CYContains. So yeah, but you can do something. All right. So let me jump back into the chat and see what's here. How do you approach? Do you have all this looking? Is it a good idea to work with BDD in Cypress? Hey Chris, how are you? See you tomorrow. With BDD, by BDD, do you mean the cucumber thing? I'm not using it. I am not using it. Like the... Yeah, I guess that's what generally people mean when they say BDD, right? Hopefully, I'm not misinterpreting you. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of the cucumber syntax. For the same reason that I'm not entirely a fan of the page object. The thing I rambled on before, which was sort of repeating yourself, right? So if you have a definition where you have those like given when then things, and then like you write your scenarios in those. But whenever you want to do some kind of action or setup or whatever, you need to have some sort of definition file, right? Or something like that, where you define what that step will actually do and what kind of inputs it will have. And the thing with that is, you do a lot of work to create that module. And then what you can do with that module is like the only thing it does. And so you end up with something you either are just, you either put a lot of work into setting up and you're just going to use once, and you could have just easily written a simple Cypress command, or you're going to use it over and over and over again, basically over testing one spot in your application, which I don't know, like it doesn't feel right to me. It feels like this is an ineffective approach. Like we're running many tests that they're doing on some part they are doing like the same thing. So yeah, I do have like a strong opinion on this, but again, like take that with a grain of salt, right? I have 6 years experience in testing, so it's not like I have been everywhere, not like I know something, and there may be some sort of critical information that I'm missing, which would make me turn around on the whole cucumber thing. But so far, the people I've been talking to with that are using this and that are using this with Cypress, I really think they could have they could test more effectively if they wouldn't use that. So yeah, not a fan. That's my honest opinion. Is there a way to count the number of rows in a table which is dynamically generated according to data? Ooh, and you want to like do it within the test, right? And you want to count them. I wonder, how would you do that? Oh yeah, you can easily do that. I realized just now. Let's get back to our test, right? We have test.js. And let's open the application. And yeah, but I don't have a table, but I'm going to write some code, and hopefully that could give you an idea of how you can write. You could add an index to your test IDs. Oh, you could add index to your test IDs, but maybe you don't have access to the application. Or maybe you do. I mean, in that case, that's awesome. Oh, I'm still have that option here. So let me delete this. And where's my test? Oops. All right. Let's open this shopping list. And here, that's what I wanted. Board. All right, so the problem is I have certain number of elements somewhere on my page and I want to count them. So what I can do is get my elements. So I'm going to use these cards. There are 5 of those. And let me count them inside Cypress. So how about I do get data cy card. And now what I'm going to do is use then function and use cards, and I'm going to console log cards length, and that's it. The cards length will be 5. So if I want to like put it into a constant, so let's do const card number would be cards length, right? So this is the thing, right? So I counted the number of cards. Ooh, did I do cards number, card number? Oh, cards, something like that. All right. So this would be a way of, and I can now use the card however I want inside this then function. So that's how I could like write some JavaScript to get the number of cards. All right. Is there a way to bypass Angular routing? With Cypress, there are pages that forces you to start from dashboard, with Node allowing you to jump directly into submodule-like configurations. Phew, I think there is, but I don't know. Don't know how. Yeah, I wouldn't have an answer for that. I don't have an answer for that. Sorry about that. All right, let's jump into the most upvoted questions. What is the design pattern preferred when you use Cypress and why? All right, so I partially answered that question when talking about page objects, that I'm like not like a biggest fan of that. Although I am using it sometimes on some places, still have to kind of consider where that will go and if I want to use it more widely or less. Still leaning towards less. And the design pattern, I already kind of mentioned it. It was the arrange, act, assert. So, and the design pattern I am sort of trying to use is to mimic the behavior of a user. So always when I write a test, I try to think of a user story. So if I am a user that wants to, I don't know, send a question here in Slido. I want to open the application, I want to click on this input, type my text, hit send, and then I want to see that question appear. So that would be like a whole user story, and that would be a whole test, right? So that's kind of an easy user story to test. But what about having a like on a question, right? So in order to upvote a question, I need to have that question. I need to have a question in my event, right? So what that means, I need to have that event created. I need to enter that event. I need to send the question, and then I can upvote it. So the question is, all right, like what's the act part of that? The act would be the sending of a like, right? Clicking that button and seeing it appear. Well, seeing it appear would actually be like the assertion part. So so how many of those things I can sort of push away from that test? A lot of them actually, like sending that question, creating that event, etc. So those would be things that I would abstract, and how I do that is basically using API and seeding that data before I even like go and open the application as a user. So yeah, I would use a lot of custom functions, which would be like cy.sendQuestion or cy.createEvent or cy.sendLike, and those would all be like API actions. Or rarely I use that's not really fair to say, but I definitely use commands, custom commands, more for like doing a CY request and to sort of like create a wrapper around that function so I can send whatever data I need. That would be my preferred design pattern. Can you use Cypress for API testing? Absolutely, and it's amazing. Yeah, I have a blog about that. That's my universal answer. Hopefully. Cypress Basics API testing. So yeah, you can send a request and then you can test that request, right? So you can, I'm not testing it, I'm just console logging it out. Do I have a test here in this block? Yeah, all right. So I can expect the status to equal to a 1, right? So I'm doing API testing. Can check the response body and attributes of that body, etc. And there's also a great CY API plugin, which can render your API request and response in the here inside this browser. So you already kind of have sort of like a Postman setup. So this is really nice. And yeah, if you want to do like different kinds of assertions and to test maybe just a part of the response, then there's another great plugin which I haven't included because I found out about it after I wrote this blog, and that is CY Spock. CY Spock. And using this for API testing it's just amazing. I absolutely love it. So let's say you have a should assertion and you pass that Spock function inside, and that Spock function would have an object. And basically in that object you define everything you want to test. And if the response object contains some other data, it doesn't really matter. It's still okay. So it's sort of like tests partial. You can test partially the response object, which is nice because you can just test the things you are interested in. All right. So API testing, definitely do that. It's a good one. Are you still using page object despite Cypress' recommendation of not using it? To be clear, there's no recommendation of not using it. I know what happens if you do Cypress page object model and you put that into Google. What happens? You see this one. Stop using page objects and start using app actions. And yeah, our friend Gleb has written that. And I'm not sure if he regrets it at this point, but but yeah, I think he made a strong statement in this one, and I think I hope I'm not misinterpreting what he's trying to say here, but I think what he's trying to say here, there are better ways of doing things. Especially if you are doing the setup, right? If you want to, so again, like the arrange, act, assert. If in the arrange phase of your test, if you're arranging, setting up stuff, and if you're using, if you are using the page object, and that page object, what it does, it just goes through UI and clicks on different things. I mean, that's not the best way, and you can absolutely do more with Cypress. And one thing that you can do with Cypress, and I mean it's sort of advanced thing. Those are those app actions. What you can do. So, how would I explain that? Let me explain that on my application. You can access the storage of that application, right? So I have my app over here, and you can see some of the data is rendered here, right? I have a shopping list, and I have these nice little view tools because this application is written in Vue.js. And this application uses internal storage. So what is internal storage? When my application opens, it will do an HTTP request and try to get data from the server. And when it gets that data, it will store it in its internal storage. So your JavaScript application has an internal storage usually where it can store that data that came from network. And when it does that, it will render out certain things. Like for example, I have one board, it has a shopping list, and based on the data, the application is going to render that. So what I can do is I have these nice view tools. Let me go to the board. And here basically through these view tools, I'm looking inside the storage. So here are the properties of this component that is rendering my shopping list. And what I can do with these nice view tools, can I do it? What's happening? I want to edit this. I cannot edit it? Why not? Oh, I wanted to demonstrate something cool and it didn't work for me. Why, oh why? I can demonstrate at least something. Not sure why I cannot do that. Probably just because it's a crappy code and I haven't written it in a very good way. Yeah, but for example, this show star. All right, so this is a storage element that will just either show or not show a star, and I can click on it and change the state of that thing right here. So I can click on true, on false, and that star over here will appear or not appear. So this would be like a very lame example of what can be stored inside that internal storage. And what you can do with Cypress, and that is because Cypress is running inside the browser right next to your application. What Cypress can do is to access that application, access that storage, and change values in the storage in like the same manner that I did with the view tools over here. And those would be the app actions. And I think like it's a good thing that you can do that, and you can like put your own data inside the store. But I don't really think it's a substitute for how page objects are being used. And Gleb, if you are on chat, please oppose me. But I'm not really opposing Gleb. I'm just saying that what am I saying actually? I'm saying that the setup phase can be done in different ways. You can use page objects, you can use CY request to like seed your data, or you can use this app action, or basically injecting your data into the internal storage of the application, which is sort of like mocking the state of the data, which can be useful. It's kind of hard to set up if you haven't written the application, and but I wouldn't say it's a one-to-one substitute. So I see some people that are kind of like are confused, like, oh, I know I shouldn't be using page objects, and I know I should be using the app actions. And most of the time I see like they don't really know what the app action is, and it kind of makes them stuck in a place. And that's like the worst thing you can have as a tester. Like, don't be stuck in a place. You should write a test, you should add the value, and make sure that whenever the application is going to be released, it's safe. Write good tests. So if anything is stopping you, if the fact that you think page object pattern model whatever is not good for you, and if that's stopping you from writing your tests, then how about you just write that page object? If you know how to do that, go ahead and do that. It's going to be way better. So yeah. So my recommendation would be just write that test. Don't wait. Product team needs you. Developers need you. Doesn't it make help code much organized and clear? Yes, it can. It can also do the opposite. So watch out for that. Today on the webinar, I said readability first, and I stand by that. I think tests should be easy to read. If they're easy to read, they're easy to debug. So if they fail, you know what's failing, and you don't spend like 10 hours debugging of why is this test even failing? It shouldn't. And what is this test doing? So yeah. Any news on Safari browser support for Cypress? That's a question for the product team. Hopefully they will release that, although on the topic of cross-browser testing. I was excited when Firefox support got announced, and I was like, yeah, finally we can test in Firefox. And I was like, all right, but what do? Do I run all of my tests in Firefox? Is that what I want to do? And I don't. And I ended up just like not testing anything in Firefox. I'm still running everything on Chrome. No, I'm still running everything on Electron. And it's good enough. Like, that's where most of our users are. They're using the... What are they using? They're like Chromium-based browsers, plus Safari. So yeah, But the difference between Safari and Chromium, I mean, probably someone very much fluent in differences between browsers could argue with me, but I would say those differences between these two browsers are just so minimal that I wouldn't find too much value in running, like, let's say I have 500 tests and run 500 tests on Chrome and then run 500 tests on Safari. I don't think that would add any value. It would just add more debugging and false negatives, I think. So yeah, but I mean, there can be some areas which you want to test on different browsers. I imagine, I don't know, things like downloading. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, like during my testing, when there was a difference between different browsers for the application, it was almost never a functional difference. Like the application was functioning absolutely the same on all of the browsers. Where it made a difference was the visual, the CSS thing, and yeah, and I think if you can like find a good balance, so for example, integrate visual tests into your Cypress tests. There are some great tools. There's applet tools which will just take a snapshot of the state of the DOM and then can render it in different browsers. So that's like a great way to test that. Or you can use Percy, which I think they already have. Oh, I cannot open Percy now. Sorry. I think they have also like a WebKit support now, so you can render your application in the browser, which is, I mean, I think that's all you need. So yeah, but I think like many people will be happy when that browser support drops and they can tell their manager, so now Safari is officially supporting more browsers. So can we use it, please? Pretty please? Yeah, I think it will help business-wise. All right. Oh, I haven't answered this. So can we implement thread in Cypress so we don't need Dockers to execute tests parallelly even in a local machine? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Sorry. I just am not knowledgeable in this area. What is the best HTML report we can integrate with Cypress? Best HTML report? I don't know. But I know maybe some people will not believe me because I'm a Cypress ambassador. But I think the Cypress dashboard is pretty cool. It's like, I think it's the best reporter out there for Cypress tests. I can show you why. Just give me a second so I don't open the wrong dashboard because I'm using multiple of them. Just give me a second. Just want to show you why it is cool, why I enjoy working with that. All right, so here's my Cypress dashboard. I have my Philippides.com. I have my Trello app, which is public, by the way. And all right, so obviously I can look into the results. That's like obvious thing, right? What I can also do is I have the exact error. I can see what's happening. I have the details. Whenever there's an error, Cypress will do a screenshot. So I can look into that screenshot, what's happening. I can look into the video, and it's like all here. I don't have to upload it anywhere. I can just browse it over here. Go away. If my test is flaky, right? I have one flaky test. So what that means, the test failed. I have set up a retry for the test. So if a test fails, it should retry again. And beyond data retention. All right. Uh, I think I'm using a free plan or something like that, so that's like beyond data retention. So I do have like one flaky test. So if it failed and then it ran again and it passed, then it's going to be marked as a flaky test. So if that happens, I have like this whole analytics. Like this analytics it's amazing. I really like it. You can look into like which of your tests are flaky. And I just cannot show any data here. But here you would have like all of your tests and say like out of 30 runs, this test has failed 10 times. So it will have a high flaky severity. So you can proactively look into that and make it stable. You can look into like slowest tests and most common errors and like top failures. What is failing the most? Which of the tests is like the most failing? So you obviously need to work on that. I'm not sure if any other tool is providing that, especially not like if you're using Mocha Awesome or just straight up HTML report or something like that. I don't think it's going to provide it to you. I don't know Allure, maybe. I haven't played with that, but I'm kind of doubtful that it would have this kind of analytics feature. And I didn't even show like a half of it. You can like look into your test definition. You can take a look into like, all right, this test failed. What is the history? When did the test change? When did it become flaky? On which commit did it become flaky? So you can like do this really deep analysis, and you can take a look at the size of your test suite and the execution time. So if like product manager is curious about that, they can look into that. It's pretty good. Like the whole analytics part it's a huge one, and I like that very much. All right, let me go back into the chat because there are some questions. Have a look at CY Spock. How does it compare to deep diff? I don't know. I haven't I haven't used deep diff, so I don't know. But being able to exclude nodes from gigabytes and failing if unexpected data is present are both keys to success with API testing. So yeah, I think in that regard, CY Spock can help you with that a lot. So give it a go. You'll see if it's a good one for you. Yeah, Mitch is agreeing with me that most people are overemphasizing cross-browser testing. Yeah, there's always risk of blowing up. I mean, that's a good way to think of it. There is a risk, and we as testers should probably assess that risk, how big of a risk that is. If that could like potentially ruin business, then of course like do what you have to do, like run all of those checks, right? Also, I think if it would be that big of a problem, I think you could like you can mitigate like 90% of that risk by just writing a single Selenium test that will open your application. And if that application renders, then you're good to go. Or write it in Playwright. I don't know. Like that was our strategy for the longest time. We would have all of our functional tests written in Cypress, and then we would have like a couple of tests for Safari, for Internet Explorer, and those would be like 2 tests each. Yeah, and those were good enough. Like whenever there was a bug, we figured that out, and everything else was just a minor problem. Like you need to assess how many users are using your application from that browser. So if your users are like 90% using Internet Explorer, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. But also Cypress wouldn't be a good tool for you, right? Because you couldn't basically test anything with that. You would have a high risk, and you wouldn't have like a good confidence that everything works for them. And if something breaks, it will break for 90% of those users. So yeah, I think I'm kind of stating the obvious, but yeah, Cypress dashboard, sorry Cypress, and Mocha Awesome are good options. I never played with sorry Cypress. Uh, uh, I feel like I shouldn't. I don't know why. I mean, I think I can, but I haven't played with that. Uh, yeah, Christopher saying OnePlus for Cypress dashboard, small monthly cost for amazing reporting, and I agree with that. Like sometimes with tools and approving expenses for tools, sometimes it's funny because a tool costing you like 100 euros or dollars or 200 can be perceived as pricey. And I don't know, by the way, I don't know what the current pricing of dashboard is. But for example, like 100, 200, 300 per month might feel like a pricey thing, right? And that's it's kind of funny because if you have a developer that needs to maintain something, you create your own tool, isn't there time like much pricier if you pay developer I don't know, like a couple of thousand dollars per month, and they spend half of that time like just dealing with an internet tool? Wouldn't it be better to just buy the tool for a couple of bucks? Like money wise, it makes much more sense, I guess. Any news on the cross domain origin support? Yes, there are news. Not sure if I'm allowed to say, but we have a small group. But I mean, I'm not saying anything that wouldn't be public, right? So if you look into Cypress, where is it? Cypress.io/Cypress. How do I? Damn it, Cypress here. All right, so there are like million issues here, and there are pull requests, and there are multi-domain experimental flag. So it's being worked on. It's actively being worked on, and you can look into that in the GitHub because like Cypress is all open source. So yeah, you can look into that, and I think you can. There's something in the documentation of how you can like check out like a certain version of Cypress, even like from these from like a branch or something. I think, I don't know, but yeah, it is actively being worked on, and as far as I know, it should land sometime about like after the version 10 will land. All right, so here's like a label, multi-domain, and you get all of these issues. You can see like 17 are open, 68 are closed. So it's like coming really soon. So yeah. All right, so these are the news. All right, planning on any plan of automating native mobile app using Cypress is the only thing missing from Cypress. And APM. I don't think there are any plans for that. Like Cypress can run things in browser, but I don't know like how would it run like iOS application or something like that. I think like that's essentially it's a different product, so I don't think that's coming. But you can test web applications pretty effectively with Cypress. Can you recommend a community where a newbie can ask a question or get advice implementing certain things with Cypress? Yes, I can. There are two actually. One is on my site, so Discord. It's called Learn Cypress IO, and that's what we do on the Cypress IO on the Discord. And the second one is, of course, the Cypress one here. So here's like on the bottom of the page, there's Discord link, and that's like a Cypress community of Cypress IO. So that's where you can ask questions and learn stuff. But also, yeah, Learn Cypress.io, that's a cool one. Also, these examples over here, they are great because they're like showing you different kind of testing problems and how you can solve them. So if you click on, I don't know, dynamic test from CSV, you want to generate your test from a table, there's a whole repo on that, and you can just look into that and copy paste code, or I don't know. So it's like a small Stack Overflow for your Cypress tests. So yeah, there's a lot of things, and there's also courses. There's a courses page, and here are many of the courses. Some of them are free, and yeah, it's a good one. So that would be my recommendation. All right. Cypress seems to have a problem with element detached from DOM on React. Wait for visible doesn't fix it, so how to wait for a page to be fully loaded? All right, that's a great question. Unfortunately, it doesn't have like an easy answer. The answer to that would be sort of to understand what's happening in your application. And I know like that's such a cheap answer and doesn't like, give you a lot, but what was the block called? It was Cypress Code Smells, something like that. Webcast recording, so it has the webcast, but it has like identifying code smells in Cypress. It's a good one. Like this is sort of showing you on real life examples of what is happening in your application and how that is rendered, and how can Cypress actually point to a problem in your application when testing. So yeah, give it a read. I'll link it in the chat. Also, like this element being detached. So there's like a very good example. Can I find? I don't know. Let's go for Google. So let's say you have a search box, and every time you type a character in that search box, there's an API request that will fire, and then a response will come. So if you have a test that opens this this page, this search box, and you start typing with type command, and you type 3 characters, that is going to fire 3 different requests, which will get 3 different responses. So what usually happens in these search boxes is that there will be a drop down. Oh, I can show it in my blog. I have a search thing. So I'll type A, and there's response, right? Oh, that's not a good one. So let's type Typescript. So every time I hit a key, it's going to change the results. And if that keystroke would fire an HTTP request and wait for the response, what will happen is that in this order, I type a key, a request fires. Then after I type everything, I type all of my letters, and the last request will fire. At that point, I'm done with the type command. So Cypress will move on to the get command, which should like get the element that I'm searching for. But that last character that triggered the HTTP request has not yet received a response. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my element, and before I do any kind of action on it, click on it or make an assertion on the text, the response will come. And what happens is that my application is just going to re-render all of the results. So the element that I was getting with my get command just stops existing. And this happens a lot with web applications, that when a response from server comes, it will just re-render something, sometimes everything. And that's the reason why you will have that detached from DOM, because it will just stop existing. It will render everything again. So and there was a blog on that. Bahmuto wrote one. what was it? It was detached. I think he wrote a blog about this. Solving the element is detached and do not get too detached. So these two are like the focusing on exactly that problem. Sending those one in chat. All right, so another one answered, and woo! Oh, we don't have like too many from. Oh, we actually have. I don't think I will answer all of those. So, can you run Cypress tests in parallel without Cypress dashboard? Yes, you can. I think there's some like Docker magic you can do to run them in parallel, but you will sort of lose that load balancing thing. There's also this sorry Cypress thing that was mentioned, so I guess you can do that. And yeah, what do you think about Cucumber plugin for Cypress? I don't like it, as I already mentioned. Are there some good ways to approach deflaking or stabilizing in E2E tests? Yes, there are. I really want to do like a whole workshop on this, because there's just so many things that can go wrong, and yeah, and there are multiple. Like the first one of those I already mentioned. I mentioned the problem with like the search box, right? So that's going to like detach things. There are problems with inputs, so you kind of need to wait for the input to be ready, or write sort of like a recursive function that will just write the text and check if that text wasn't like deleted or something. And if it was, or it was partially deleted, then maybe run that again. So that would be another one. And I don't know, like the topic is so vast that, again, that would make a whole workshop. And yeah, there are good ways, but nothing like that can be said in general. But yeah, also like writing good Cypress chains, that might help. If you have a too long of chain of commands, it can result in some problems, especially if you like do get and then find and the parent and next, etc. You try to like get to your element and then have a shoot command at the end. That's kind of problematic, because shoot command will make previous command retry, but only like the previous command. So if you already selected a wrong element somewhere and at the top of the chain, or that element stopped existing, or it got an element when the data was still weren't rendered, then that shoot command or that click or something like that is not going to be all too helpful at the end. So that's like another thing. And yeah, in general, like understanding how the web application works, or trying to understand it better, it's a good way of approaching the deflaking of the test. All right. Can we use try catch in Cypress to get user-defined error for any failure? So a non-technical member can understand it easily. You cannot. I don't think you can use try catch in Cypress. But what you can do, if the goal is to get user-defined error, or something that someone else can understand more easily, there's one thing. Oh, what was it? Lesser known Cypress IO tricks. I mentioned that if you have custom error messages, right? If you have an expect function and you have a you have the element you want to test, then a second argument of that expect function would be like the error message you will get, or like the message you will get along that when that assertion is made. So if you type something more humanly understandable, then that's one way of doing that. Another thing is log. Improve your custom command logs in Cypress. Wait, is that it? No, that's not the one I have. log writing better command, improve your screenshots. Yeah, that's the one. Like when you write a test and you have a failure, if you have a good screenshot, you can like identify really quickly what's going on. What you can do, and I wrote a little code snippet over here, is, all right, so let me walk you through what I'm doing here. So I have this in my index, support index file, and I have a before each hook that will attach these log calls and test flow things on window object. So I create like a variable in here. And then I have my log command, which I'm overwriting. And I use these CY logs basically instead of like comments in my test. So step 1, open the application. That's kind of obvious, I don't write that one, but click on that button. This model appears. Basically like write steps of the test and what it is doing. And I use CY log for that. So what I did, I used this command, Cypress commands overwrite API to basically overwrite the log command, but not in like a very, very problematic way. just add some nicer like formatting for that. And what I do is I will add a number as a prefix for every of the CY log commands, so I don't have to type it in manually. It will just do it automatically for me. So if I have 5 log commands in my test, it will just number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on the window, like I'm doing, I'm pushing every log into the window. So I end up with an array of those commands, of those log messages. And then I have this Cypress on fail. So whenever Cypress will fail, it will have this error message, right? And that's the red thing you see on your test when a test fails. What I will do, I will add to that message 2 new lines, and then I say test flow was, and I will take that test flow array and just like write it down one after the other. So what happens is that when I have an error in my test, not only will I have like the red message of I timed out after 400 milliseconds, I couldn't find this element, it would also, below that, it would print like the scenario that I was trying to achieve. So when I look into that screenshot, I see exactly like, all right, so it failed on step 3 when it was trying to do something like this. So yeah, I started creating this as a plugin, but I haven't finished it, so I will finish that and yeah, so people can start using it and understand more easily. Can I run Cypress directly on AWS Cloud? I don't know. Sorry, have no experience with that. What is the best way to map manual test cases with Cypress tests? How to improve readability of tests in order if you need to find needed tests quickly? Whew, that's a good one. I mean, partially I'm answering that with this, but yeah, I guess that would need some more discussion. I don't know. Map manual test cases. There was a really nice blog by Gleb Bahmuto where he talked about TestRail. So there is a TestRail plugin. So if you are using that, what you can do if you have your manual test cases in TestRail, every TestRail thing would have like identifier number, and there's like TestRail plugin, which basically, if you use that number in your test, so you have it, the name of your test would contain that number of the test, and you run your test, it will basically like do a report of your of all of those tests inside TestRail, so you can sort of compare which of the tests were ran and what was the result, etc. It's a really nice integration. I kind of didn't like the fact that you need to like have the identifier in the test name. But I mean, I guess, I don't know. I guess like what would be the other way? So I guess it's okay. So the test will look something like this, right? So you'll have like C112 and user can log out. So, and if you run that, it's going to appear on the test rel page. So that's pretty neat. All right. If you're not using page objects, how you're managing element locators? I think I already answered that. Do you use Cypress Studio when you write your test? Nope, I don't. It's good if you want to learn about test automation. Like every kind of record and replay tool, it's a good thing for when you want to like learn about how to write the test. But I don't think like any of the record and replay tools are actually good for just like, all right, I'm going to click and this will create my test and I'm done. Like that's never the reality, at least not in my experience. So I used Selenium IDE, I used Cypress Studio, and I like gave up on record and replay tools. Not that I would have any hope, but I think they're good to sort of explore how web applications work and like get you up and running with like test automation and understand, all right, so if I click and do this, it will generate this kind of code, and how can I enhance it so it can be like, so I can actually run it more times. So like that's the thing that it is useful for. But I don't think like you can sit down any kind of non-technical person, like I don't know, your grandma, and she will like click and it will create a good test. That will not work. Where do you still store helper functions? As custom commands, top level API file. I store them inside support folder here, and I would create a folder called commands, and that's where they would live. Now, with monorepo, there's like support for creating a library. So what you can do is create a library and then import the whole library inside your project or inside any project that will use this. So in Slido we are using monorepo, and we are I have a whole library of custom commands that sort of lives outside of the application, and I'm just importing that, and it will have all of my commands ready to go. So that's where I store them. That would be like option number one from monorepos. Is there any recommended plugin to be able to visit another tab in Cypress? No. And it will not ever happen, I think. I don't think so. But I already talked about that at the beginning. Can we have Safari support? All right, anyone use Playwright? I did. I think Cypress is much better developer experience. I think it's much easier to start with Cypress than to start with Playwright. And I'm talking like with my own experience, that when I started using Cypress, I could write a test after like some sort of initial figuring out. I could just open browser and run my test. With Playwright, you need to like do the setup, you need to do like browser launch, you need to like do a couple of things, and you need to understand you have to have a certain skill set. With Cypress, if you know what is a function, then you're already good to go. Like you don't need too much JavaScript knowledge to start with that. So I think Playwright at the moment is winning with people that want that WebKit support, or with people that want that cross-domain support. At the moment, as soon as that will land with Cypress, I don't think like Playwright would have too much to offer, because Cypress is just that much easier to use. That's a prediction. those tend to be wrong. We'll see. Why is page object discouraged? I think we answered that. It is not. So when will Cypress support conditions within test? I mean, it supports it's now. It's just it's not a good pattern. And the reason why that is not a good pattern is that you have a single test that can give you two different results. I actually discussed this with my colleague today. She wanted to write a test like, all right, we have a page and there's like a list of elements. And it can either have elements or not. So I want to write a test where if it doesn't have elements, it's going to do this thing, and if it does, then it's going to do the other thing. And I said, all right, but what if it should have elements and it will not? In that case, it's going to give you a false positive, which is no good, right? And you might find out about that weeks after, right? Or after a user will complain or something like that. So one test should only give you a single result. So don't write conditions in your test. I mean, you can write conditions in your test, but watch out for what those conditions are, right? If they are going to split the logic of your test to give you two different outcomes, that's no good, right? If they are like, I don't know, you have a function that can handle different inputs, I mean, there can be some sort of condition or something like that. But yeah. Is there a way to enable Chrome extensions with Cypress Runner? There is, but I don't know how can that be. There is, but I would have to Google that. Chrome extensions Cypress. Like there is something, not Cypress. How to load Chrome extension in Cypress IO? Yeah, there it is. So yeah, there's a whole blog about it, and I'm pretty sure it's not the only one. I think Gleb also had one. So posting that in the chat. Right. What are your thoughts on using Cucumber? I answered that already. As I said, not a fan. Do you recommend using Cypress to test gate builds? I don't know what those are. So, sorry. How will we get answers of these questions? Great question! I made a stream just for you. Cypress podcast. Yeah, I thought about that. If I would add a podcast to everything I do, I would probably burn out really fast. It is a good idea. I would like to have some sort of Cypress dedicated podcast. We'll see. Yeah, ask me about 50 times about that and you might convince me. Please don't do that. All right. Updates on Angular component testing. No, I don't have any. I'm not with Cypress team, so I don't know. When will Cypress support mobile testing? As we mentioned, like native, not really, but Cypress mobile testing, you can get pretty close with like web testing. So I wrote a blog for Applitools about that, and yeah, so it's sort of, yeah, you can give it a read of how you can simulate the browser to be sort of like a mobile web. It's very, very similar to when you like open your DevTools and just go to responsive and just select a device you want to render your application on, and have like touch events and etc. So yeah, dropping the link in the chat. All right, we're reaching the end. Can we have more users in paid version of Cypress? Sorry, I don't know answer for that. I love this type of chat. Any potential for it to happen again? Yes, there will be many ambassador chats in the future. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Cypress probably is going to announce that. Um, is being able to open second tab still a trade-off? I think I mentioned this already. It's not really. I wouldn't say it's a trade-off. I think it's, yeah. I don't think you really need second tab. All right. So, are there any way to wait for scroll events on Cypress? I don't know. If there was like a code example of what that question means, it would be much easier to answer and to like fiddle with that and try to find out what's the problem there. All right, so sorry for that. Any notes on tools to log into Microsoft SharePoint using all-out login? You can do all-out login, but you need to do that programmatically. And I wrote a blog about the Google SSO, so you can check that out. There's also documentation for like different types of logging, so like Auth0 and Okta, etc. There are recipes in Cypress docs. Not sure about Microsoft SharePoint, but I guess that's also something that in principle would be very similar. So that's the one. Do ambassadors have any blogs or videos they'd like to plug? That was a nice one. Thanks for that. I did plug my workshop. Not sure how. I felt really cringy when saying that. It felt like out of nowhere. All right, come to my workshop. How about that? I don't know. I suck at marketing. So, yeah, if you'd like to come to workshop. I would be happy to have you. I'm currently doing one now. We're sort of in the middle of that, and it's been amazing. Like the attendees are so great. I really enjoyed that, and they seem to be enjoying it too. So I'm happy about that. What is the recommended spec for CLI Runner Cypress memory? Phew, I don't know that. The code coverage does not seem to work. Always get an error when I allow. Did you forget to instrument your app? You might have forgotten to do that. But based on this question, there's no way this can be answered. So yeah, sorry. That's not really. I don't know. I really don't know how. Yeah, come to the Discord and share your code, and we can figure it out. Right? So like the most busy channel on my Discord is the I need help. Like literally nothing is happening in any other channels. Just everyone needs help. So, but yeah, I mean, we are learning, so that's okay. We can learn together. So yeah, head over there and hopefully we can find out together like what's the problem. And it's not only me helping, there's like a whole community of people helping each other, so that's very cool. All right, we reached the end of like Slido questions, and then we still have like a couple of questions from Zoom. I'm too tired to do that. Sorry for that. I wanted to answer like all of the questions, but I just couldn't. There were just too many. I'll read through them. I'll try to see like what might be, what kind of questions could have an answer, and we can chat about that on Discord. Or if you feel like your question wasn't answered, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you. Yeah. All right, the scrolling thing, Christopher, thank you for specifying it. Likely refers to vertical scrolling interfaces like Twitter. I would have to like explore that. I have never encountered a problem with scrolling to a certain element, or with scrolling in general. But I do know like there are people that have problems with scrolling. So I guess that might be a good one to explore and to try to find out like what can potentially come up when you are dealing with an application that is scrolling. So yeah, hopefully Hopefully I can write a blog about that soon. All right, this has been awesome. I am going to finish this now, since this has been a lot. Let me count how many questions I have actually answered. If I select, can I like select everything? Let me. 43 questions. It would be a very long webinar if I would try to answer. If we all try to answer like at least like half of them. So yeah, it's kind of a problem with these huge events when you have so many people having so many questions, and you kind of try to like also have a content and not just be an AMA with Cypress ambassadors. So I guess this kind of thing was hopefully nice. We can do an AMA. I would love to do this. I really enjoyed this one, so yeah. Hopefully, I'll do this in the future. All right. Thanks everyone, and stay tuned like for more awesome content. And if you would like to learn Cypress, yeah, come to my workshop. Yeah. So hopefully see you next time, and that next time hopefully will not take too long, because I'm really not very periodical with these streams. But today I said to myself, all right, let's answer those questions. I think that might be nice. All right. With that said, bye everyone, and hope you enjoyed this, and also everyone like watching it afterwards. Hope you enjoyed that. If you still have questions, find me on Discord, and see you. Bye bye.